the top 10 conference games of the 2024 season, and then we'll get to Florida State. I think this will be a relatively quick conversation. I know people are probably excited to hear about the Florida State conversation, but let's talk about these. Ohio State has the top 3 games in terms of the conference this season. If you're listening on podcast, I'll go ahead and read them off to you. Michigan at Ohio State, number 1. Ohio State at Oregon. Ohio State at Penn State. Oregon at Michigan. USC at Michigan. Michigan at Washington. Penn State at USC. Nebraska at Iowa. Getting up there, Wisconsin at Iowa. And then finally, UCLA makes an appearance at USC. Do you agree, Sonny, that these are 10 of, maybe there's a slightly different order, but do you agree these are the 10 most important conference games, or would you swap any out for another game?
I mean, I feel like I can swap USC and UCLA out for something if I took a look at the schedule. I don't exactly project UCLA to be all that good this year. USC, I don't think they're going to be contending for the conference title this year. And so I could probably swap that game out. But I don't necessarily agree with the order. I think Ohio State, Oregon is clearly the best game of the year, or the biggest game of the year, because you're talking about arguably 2 of the top 3, top 4 teams in the entire country. So that would be number 1 on my list. But, again, you have the extra added rivalry factor with Michigan and Ohio State. So, I mean, it's only one spot too high for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think Michigan, Ohio State, definitely the biggest one. I think Oregon and Ohio State, that is kind of the game that a lot of people have been anticipating. I've heard a lot of Ohio State fans say that this is a bigger game to them than Michigan at Ohio State. And I've heard some Michigan fans say that Oregon is a bigger game for them than Ohio State this season. Ohio State fans, you have the reasoning being that they don't think Michigan is going to compete for the Big Ten title this year. And then Michigan fans, you have their reasoning being that they've beaten Ohio State 3 years in a row. So they're no longer real competition for them,
Yikes.
Which, again, this is why we love rivalries, the fun of it all. But at the end of the day, like, Oregon's right up there. Ohio State's right up there. Michigan has 4 games, even though they don't have the top 3 like Ohio State. They have 4 games up there. I mean, Sonny, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but if you're asking me, if you have 4 games in the top 10, nearly top 5, you're probably going to be a contender for the Big Ten, whether people think so or not. I mean, Michigan...
you are really trying to build up this narrative about Michigan being a very good football team. So when you slaughter them later on this year,
my hopes and dreams, Sonny.
Oh,
but I'm being honest, like, I was kind of rough on them at the beginning because I didn't know what was going to happen with the transfer portal. I do think that the Rod Moore injury is a bigger deal than some people are making it out to be. I don't love the safeties that they added in the transfer portal, but I think Will Johnson is going to have that secondary looking very good. But to me, the X factor is Alex Orji. If Alex Orji can come in and he can be a competent quarterback, I mean, if he is Jalen Milroe-esque, not quite as good as Jalen Milroe, but if he can be Jalen Milroe-esque, I mean, I can see Michigan 10-2, 11-1, and that might be enough to win the Big Ten this year. If they beat Ohio State at the end of the year, I think Ohio State will win, but I'm just saying, if they beat Ohio State at the end of the year and their only loss is to Oregon, if Ohio State takes care of Oregon and Oregon drops one more time, you're looking at another Big Ten championship of, well, not another one because it's never happened, but you're looking at a Big Ten championship game of Ohio State and Michigan, the rematch just a week later from the rivalry game.
I mean, Michigan's got a really tough schedule. They have a game with Texas. I think Texas comes to Ann Arbor as well. I agree with you that they could finish 10-2, but I think there'll be a few 10-2 teams in the country, but that doesn't mean all 10-2 teams are alike. I think I saw Ohio State right now is a 10-point favorite in the game. I think just the clear talent level of Ohio State and Oregon is one tier above where Michigan is at right now. Now, again, I could just be one of those haters. I don't think I am. I've never had any ill will towards Michigan, at least on the football side.
Your wife is a Buckeye, so that is a connection that now makes you a hater.
Maybe that's what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
They lost a lot of experience from last year's team, but, Michigan's arguably one of the best teams that, just recruits and develops. And so this could just be another one of those, not rebuilding, but just reloading year. But I just think with the top end talent that Ohio State and Oregon have, that, if one of them finishes 11-1 or 10-2 and the same record as Michigan, the two teams are still not the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that Michigan is going to have a little bit of luck. But, they get USC coming to them and they get to go out to Washington. And I don't think that that's going to be any slack of a game. I agree that is a top, 10 game, nearly top 5 up there. But at the end of the day, I also think that, Penn State and USC, Penn State at USC, I don't think that is going to be as impactful of a game. Like Penn State has the 3rd best odds to win the conference. USC has the 5th best odds to win the conference right now. I think Iowa could be better than both of them. You agree? Disagree?
I absolutely agree. Iowa's
based on that schedule. I mean, based on nearly that entire defense coming back, like they're missing Cooper DeJean, but
one of the easiest schedules in the country, and they finally made the move with the offensive coordinator. So I think a lot of eyes are going to be on Iowa just to see if that offense really transforms at all, or if it was just it was always Kirk Ferentz the whole time.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Iowa having 2 games up there is pretty interesting in my mind. But at the end of the day, we will certainly see. All right. Like I said, probably a much bigger discussion coming up here. Let me get to the comments real fast. See. I think that was about the rivalries. USC versus UCLA has no business on this list. I agree. I can't think of a game off the top of my mind that's more impactful than that, but I mean, there has to be one, right? There has to be an Iowa game out there that's more impactful. Rutgers game, all right? Hey, Rutgers versus Nebraska. That's going to be their toughest.
I was just going to say Rutgers and Nebraska. If Nebraska wins that game, you're talking about being like 7-0 going into that Ohio State game. So, I mean, Rutgers looks like they're going to be
wins that game. If Rutgers wins that game, you're looking at a possible Rutgers team that's 9-3, 10-2.
And don't think I forgot that this is unofficially a Rutgers podcast as well.
Yes, it is. Don't forget that. We are unofficially Rutgers here. I need to put a Rutgers sign next to my Ohio State one down here. Duck Fan 1, I don't think I've seen you here before. Thanks for watching and thanks for commenting. Oregon versus Washington should be, 100%, right? Oregon versus Washington, way bigger game than UCLA, USC.
I just assumed that was on this. Yeah, that's silly.
Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out, Duck Fan 1.
I definitely agree. Yeah.
That's going to be way more of an
number
impactful
2
game.
Overall rivalry. And all of a sudden, again, I just glossed over it, thinking that, of course, it's on this list. That's silly.
I mean, to me, that's a bigger game than Penn State USC.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
maybe.
I think it's
for rivalry factor, that's a bigger game than Michigan Washington.
That's what I was going to say. I think it's bigger than Michigan Washington because obviously Washington's won 3 straight games in that series too. Oregon needs that game, especially if they want to. Be battling Ohio State at the end.
You know what? Screw it. Better game than Ohio State, Penn State. Ohio State, Penn State, not even a rivalry. Oregon, Washington. Put it number 3. Kick UCLA and USC out.
I'm going to clip that.
I got to tell you, man, I am so excited for Oregon to be in this conference. They might dash my hopes and dreams this season, and if they do, I'll be severely sad, but I am so excited to have Oregon in this conference. Washington too, but it'll
be nice. I think Illinois plays at Oregon this year. It's too soon for me to make the trip out there, but I'm glad that they're here in order to make a road trip down the road. That'll be fun.
I had a guy offer to buy a ticket for me for the Oregon Ohio State game, but I don't think I'll be able to go. Dylan, JR is so back. Yes, Dylan, we are back. Philip asked for us to go 2 hours and 20 minutes earlier, but since you're not here, we can't do that. So. But maybe next time Dylan's on, we'll break the record again.